It's showtime.
Hey everyone, Django Fett here, hunting down games, comics, TV shows, movies, and more, and this is a review for Blood Ties, Boba Fett is Dead. This is the second story arc of the Blood Ties series, and is also a 4-issue comic that was written by Tom Taylor and drawn by Chris Sculp once again. So I'll read the back of the book and read the summary. The news spreads from one end of the galaxy to the other like wildfire. Boba Fett, the galaxy's most feared bounty hunter, is dead. But members of the team that killed Fett are themselves being picked off one by one by a mysterious Avenger, and Connor Freeman, the son of one of Django Fett's clones, gets drawn in the whodunit. Freeman is recruited against his will to find and safeguard a particular bounty hunter on a distant world with an unknown connection to Boba Fett. So like my other review, this review will feature full-on spoilers, so if you haven't read this story, then stop the video and skip to this time. With that said, I will go in-depth with this story, briefly talk about the artwork, and then talk about some of the characters, my final opinion, and the rating at the end. So this story is set 1 year after the events of the first story, A Tale of Django and Boba Fett, or 1 year before the Battle of Yavin, and starts with Boba Fett dead, killed by several mercenaries who are hired by a smiling individual, who you'll find out later on. The news spreads and reaches Connor Freeman from the first story, who now owns a bar, and is saddened over the news, and toasts to him and heads out. Then it's set 3 weeks later, and a mysterious man approaches the Iridonian Captain Sabar, who was one of the mercenaries who killed Boba Fett. And the mysterious man kills his 2 bodyguards, then questions the captain for information, and tells him of a stormtrooper commander, and then kicks him off the edge of a bridge to his death, and tells him he can scream now. It goes back to the smiling man, who is not smiling anymore, and receives the news from his spy master that Captain Sabar was killed and would be cautious from this point. This mysterious man then goes to the planet of Santimon, forgive me for mispronouncing it, to get the stormtrooper commander, and gives his ID as Connor Freeman, and captures the commander and strips him of his armor in front of this hungry dewback he was riding, and questions him. The commander tells him of an officer named Mac Ewells, and the mysterious man leaves the commander to his death to be eaten by his own dewback, which is definitely a fucked up way to go. Then the head man who hired the mercenaries knows something is up and tells his spymaster to kill every trace of Fett in his angry vendetta against him. Back in the cantina with Connor Freeman, Connor hears his name was used to kill Boba's killers, and he's shocked. Then a man in a stormtrooper commander outfit grabs Connor and takes him out of the cantina, and the cantina is then suddenly destroyed by an incoming ship. Connor is then taken to a medical facility by the stormtrooper commander, and finds out of the hard news that he lost an arm and freaks out. The commander takes him away and reveals him as not so dead Boba Fett. Boba then tells Connor what happened before this point. He was hunting a man and then fired upon by a bunch of mercenaries, and then kills the man he originally was going to hunt, then switches his outfit so that the dead man has his outfit, and he has the dead man's outfit himself. Connor is upset, and rightfully so, but he has to work with Boba. But Boba decides to drop off Connor at a familiar world called Concord Dawn, a world that Django and Boba know very well, and both have tragic pasts involved there that I will mention later on. Boba tells Connor to find a bounty hunter named Sintas Val and protect her and tell no one that he is alive. Boba then goes to Blackfell to get his next mark and runs a ship straight to the command post, and runs into Vader, who doesn't recognize him. Then quickly moves on. Connor finds the House of Vel, but first runs into a little girl named Eileen, and eventually Sintas puts a gun behind his head. But as they talk, they are ambushed by a gang of Devorians, and Connor tells Sintas to protect her daughter, and she's like, why? And suddenly a rocket blast appears, shoots out from the house, and destroys the transport, and it's Aelin who shoots out the rocket, this little girl. And then they finish off the remaining gang members. Boba encounters Captain Ewells and is a member of Stormtroopers, and he recognizes it's not the commander who has that outfit. And Boba shoots a grenade and kills everyone but Ewells, and captures him and takes him back to his ship to question him later. Then Connor has a cute moment with Aelin, and Connor and Sintas kiss, and she says, you remind me of someone, and eventually he finds out that Sintas had a kid with Boba via the hologram, and they were once a thing. As Boba questions Ewells, he finds out that the governor of Concord Dawn, who he saw as the smiling man in the beginning, issued the bounty on Boba because of what happened to his son. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Sintas pops in when Connor discovers that Boba is the father and husband to Sintas and mentioned that he was a journeyman protector but killed a man and exiled from Concord Dawn. Aelin then wakes up and asks, "Have you been kissing?" And suddenly an explosion destroys the door and they're forced to retreat in the basement. The governor finds them and wants any trace of Boba destroyed, meaning Sintas and Aelin. But what the governor doesn't know is that Boba is alive, and he shows up in his ship and first fires upon them, then jumps out to handle them personally. The spy master reaches up to where Boba is, and Fett says he's busy killing the governor's guards, and says, "Do you seriously think that there's any way you can win this fight?" With an awesome explosion in the background. And she's like, "Nah." And Boba says, "You're mine now, and if you cross me, you're dead, and not to run." And she agrees. The governor is looking for Sintas and Aelin while Connor and Sintas dress in Mandalorian armor and break the floor to surprise the governor and his men, and Boba watches in the background, and not to distract from surprising his wife, who he just up and left. The governor tells Sintas that Boba killed his son in cold blood, but Sintas reveals some information that blew me away and justifies Boba's reason. Sintas says there was a reason. He just never shared it with anyone. He kept it a secret to protect me. Yes, I knew Lenore. Do you know what your beautiful son did to me? And she whispers to the governor, and this enrages him, and he tries to choke Sintas, not before Connor kills the governor. Sintas kisses Connor, and Boba watches everything the whole time. Sintas tells Connor he's gotta go, and she doesn't like being reminded of her husband, and tells him, "You can tell Boba everything when you see him," which shows how clever she is, and saw right through Connor. But I don't believe she knew Boba was in the area. Connor meets up with Boba, and Boba's like, "You kissed my wife." And Connor says, "She's not your wife anymore." And Boba's like, "Yeah, I know." Then Connor gives the tooth of the governor to Boba because he knows he collects teeth of monsters, so why not? Then they both leave, and the story just ends there. Alright, so quite a lengthy story section in comparison to the last story. This one was a bit more complicated to explain without having to explain every little thing. But anyway, let's get into the characters. Let's start off with the main character, Boba Fett. And yes, no surprise, Boba Fett isn't dead. He never died. I know you guys would never have guessed, despite everyone knowing right away. And I have to say, I have problems with Boba in this story. He first gave up his armor and strapped it on another man to escape a hole and faked his death. But I'm sorry, I'm calling BS on that. Once again, uncharacteristic of Boba, and I think this is worse because as tactful and clever as Boba is, he's not giving up his armor or arsenal and faking his death. He has flamethrowers. He has so much arsenal of weaponry that he just up and gives up his armor right then and there. I know it's in that situation it's tough, but Boba is loaded, man. It's not like he isn't. It's not like he was shot up to hell before that time. He really wasn't. He was shot once and that was it. I'm just not buying it when he's had way worse odds in other stories in the past. And while he does take out the guy slowly, the story misses out on a few characters like the Rodian and Stormtroopers and Scout Troopers that were shown in the beginning. They were never shown being taken out by Boba, but apparently it was done in the background, but it was never even hinted or anything like that of this sort. I didn't understand that. He killed 3 guys, then beelined it straight to the governor, the head guy. But I'm sorry, Boba, you would have to take out every single guy, then take out the governor. That's usually how things would go, especially with Boba. He would take out everyone. Then we have Sintas Val, so let me give some backstory on her. She first appeared in a Star Wars Tales story, Tales number 7, in Outbid But Never Outgunned. She was a bounty hunter that met Boba, and they married. They lived 3 years on Concord Down, and Fett was a journeyman protector, and Sintas gave birth to her daughter, Aelin. Now, in that story, they just appeared and they encountered each other. They didn't do anything after that point, I don't think. It's been a while since I've read that story. However, things get crazy because when she talked to the governor, if you didn't catch it, she implied she was raped by Lenore and ends up being true. And this blew my mind because this is one of the first times I've ever seen a mention of something as horrific as rape put in a Star Wars story. To think that would happen in Star Wars was something unheard of to me. But I like when they throw a curveball at you from time to time. That makes me want to come back for more and engage and discover more of these stories, for sure. Fett ends up killing that man who did that to Sintas, and it ends up being his exile from Concord Dawn, and they divorce from that point on too. Just a very tragic past with Boba and Sintas, and much like Django and his family who were killed too, and he eventually went to the Mandalorians. And then eventually the Mandalorians also got killed as well. So it's kind of like an endless cycle with Django and then with Boba as well. In this story, Sintas was definitely a tough cookie and pissy, but rightfully so. But thankfully, she had her daughter, Aelin Vel, a very funny little girl who said kissing will give you space worms and shot a rocket at some Valorians, just showing how deadly she is. Just cute but deadly. And then lastly, the governor, who was an egomaniac but not a very compelling villain. And then Connor is definitely better in this story, but he's just not worth talking about more. Next, let's get into the artwork. The art, once again, is done by Chris Scolf, and definitely great. I have no complaints whatsoever. I think I prefer the art in the first story personally, but it's still great. And lastly, my final opinion. So initially, years back when I first read it, I have to say I hated this story. But now rereading it, it's good, but just not as good as the first story. With the first half being pretty boring for me, and it was pretty obvious from the beginning that Boba isn't dead, and he was killing all the bounty hunters, and just jumping from one place to another. But when Sintas and Aelin show up in the second half, things get really interesting, and you even find the same holo picture from Star Wars Tale number 7 to here, which is a pretty cool thing. And it's satisfying to see Boba in the final half decimate everyone, and Sintas revealing that horrible thing to her and her tragic past between her and Boba just really grabbed my attention. And unfortunately, the series just ends and we never got a third story, which is a shame. So I'm going to give Star Wars Blood Ties, Boba Fett is Dead, a... Despite many flaws, this story still gets a recommendation from me, and much better than I expected. So just like my last review, if you'd like to get this comic, you can get the self-titled paperback, or you can wait till July 2022 and get the Empire Volume 7 Epic Collection to get both of the Blood Tie stories. So I want to do one more review for the Boba Fett miniseries, and that is the complete trilogy for the Bounty Hunter Wars. Also, I am reviewing the Bounty Hunter Wars, each book, in a podcast series with General CJG on the State of Star Wars YouTube channel. So please check out that podcast series as well as we go in-depth spoilers with everything when it comes to talking about each of the different stories within the Bounty Hunter Wars. But I will try to do a spoiler-free video just talking about the whole trilogy. And I'll put a link for the video or videos in the description down below. So please be sure to like this video and comment down below. Tell me what you think of Boba Fett is Dead and the Blood Tie series as a whole. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comment section. And subscribe to my channel, Django Fett. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.